Chapter 1. The Birth of Ambition, Detroit, December 1941. Air raid sirens echoed through the city as news of Pearl Harbor spread. Frank Morrison, 34, stood inside the Willow Run factory, watching B-24 Liberators being assembled. He knew this war would change everything. But it wasn't patriotism driving Frank. It was opportunity. Mary, his wife, lay on her sickbed with advanced tuberculosis. Tommy, his 8-year-old son, needed tuition for the best private school. A mechanic's salary of $45 a week wasn't enough to support Frank's dream, to become rich and powerful. Vincent "Vinny" Castellano appeared like a dark angel. The mob boss ran an underground empire from Chicago to New York, specializing in supplying weapons to both sides of the war. "Frank, you've got talent," Vinny said in a dim bar. "You understand machines, know how to repair and improve them. I need a man like you." At first, Frank only agreed to inspect a batch of faulty Thompson submachine guns. $500 for one night's work, 10 times his monthly wage. Returning home, he found Mary looking healthier thanks to new medicine and Tommy excited about the science book he had just bought. "Dad, did you earn a bonus?" Tommy asked innocently. "Yes, son, I worked hard," Frank replied, feeling a bit of guilt dissolve as he saw his son's smile. Chapter 2. First Steps into Hell B. March 1942, Frank had become Vinny's right-hand man. He didn't just inspect weapons, he improved them, boosting the Thompson's firing rate from 600 to 800 rounds per minute, inventing homemade silencers, and modifying grenades for greater explosions. Frank's first dangerous job was transporting a special shipment from Detroit to Boston Harbor. In an old Chevrolet truck, he carried 200 M1 Garands, 50-bar machine guns, and 10,000 rounds, all borrowed from the Camp Custer military warehouse. That night, en Route 9 through Pennsylvania, Frank hit a state police checkpoint. His heart pounded as the officer approached. "License and registration," the officer said. Frank handed over fake papers prepared by Vinny, along with an envelope containing $200. "I'm transporting machine parts for a factory in Boston." "Sir." The officer took the envelope, looked Frank over long and hard, then nodded. "Drive carefully." Frank passed the checkpoint with sweaty palms and learned a crucial lesson. In this world, money could buy anything, even conscience. Chapter 3. Empire of Ambition. By 1943, Frank had become one of the largest weapons kingpins in the Midwest. He hired a crew of 12, including ex-military men kicked out for corruption. Eddie the Snake Kowalski was Frank's most trusted henchman, a former Marine sergeant skilled at sourcing weapons anywhere. Jimmy Fingers O'Brien specialized in forging documents. Maria Santos, a beautiful Cuban woman, handled contacts in South America. Frank's biggest operation was Operation Iron and Steel, a plan to steal an entire trainload of weapons from the Colt factory in Hartford. One moonless August night, Frank's crew stopped the train, knocked out the guards with chloroform, and took 500 Colt .45 pistols, 1,000 bayonets, and a large amount of ammunition. "Excellent, Frank," Vinny shouted on hearing the news. "You're a true genius." But this success came at a price. Frank started drinking more, often losing his temper with his men. He hired bodyguards, carried a .38 Special on him at all times, and moved his family to a large mansion in Grosse Pointe, Mary. Though much improved, grew worried. "Frank, I don't understand how you have so much money. Your new friends look scary." "Don't worry, Mary," Frank said, hugging her. "I'm just in the machine business. The war is good for business." But that night, Frank lay awake staring at Tommy, fast asleep in a room decorated with expensive toys. The 10-year-old still dreamed of becoming a pilot to defeat the bad guys. Frank wondered what his son would think if he knew his father sold weapons to both sides. Chapter 4. Customers in the Shadows Autumn, 1943, Frank received his biggest order yet. A man named Heinrich Müller, speaking with a heavy German accent, wanted 2,000 Thompson submachine guns, 500 Springfield sniper rifles, and a large amount of C4 explosives. "I'll pay $50,000, half up front, half on delivery," Muller said over the phone. Frank knew exactly who Muller was, a Nazi agent trying to supply sabotage cells in the U.S. But $50,000 was an enormous sum, enough to buy a legitimate factory and clean his past. The deal was made at an abandoned warehouse outside Chicago. Frank arrived with Eddie and Jimmy, along with a truck full of weapons. Muller appeared with 3 burly guards, all armed with Schmeisser submachine guns. "The goods," Frank said, opening the crates. Muller inspected every weapon, even firing a few rounds to ensure quality. "Ausgezeichnet, excellent," he said, signaling his men to bring 2 suitcases full of cash. But as Frank was about to leave, Muller said, "Herr Morrison, I have another proposal. If you can provide us with blueprints of the P-51 Mustang aircraft, I'll pay $100,000. Frank felt a chill down his spine. Selling weapons was one thing. Selling military secrets was another. "I don't do that," he replied firmly. Muller smiled coldly. "Think it over, Herr Morrison. The war won't last forever. When it ends, you'll need powerful friends." Chapter 5. The First Betrayal, December 1943. Eddie, the Snake, Kowalski, started acting strangely. He often skipped meetings, refused some tasks, and Frank noticed him secretly communicating with someone by phone. Frank's suspicion was confirmed when he discovered Eddie selling information to a rival smuggling group from New York. Worse, Eddie was stealing weapons from Frank's warehouse to sell on the side. That night, Frank summoned Eddie to a warehouse. "I trusted you like a brother, Eddie. Why did you do this?" Eddie, a large man with a scarred face, laughed bitterly. "Frank, who do you think you are? I've been playing this game since you were fixing cars. You're just a lucky mechanic. You stole $20,000 from me," Frank said, hand on his .38. "And I'll take more," Eddie replied. "The Torino crew from Brooklyn pays double to work for them. They're also interested in your client list." Frank knew he had only one choice. In this world, betrayal had one punishment. He drew his gun and shot Eddie 3 times in the chest. The shots echoed in the empty warehouse. It was Frank's first kill. He stood looking at Eddie's body for a long time, feeling something inside him die along with the man. Chapter 6. The Fateful Transport March. 1944, Frank received his final order from Vinnie to transport a massive shipment of weapons from Detroit to New York, then to a German submarine off Long Island. The cargo included 1,000 Thompson submachine guns, 500 M1903 sniper rifles, 50,000 rounds of ammunition, and notably, 20 kilograms of raw uranium stolen from the Manhattan Project. "This is the last job, Frank," Vinnie said. "After this, we go our separate ways. Your cut is $200,000. Frank knew this was his chance to escape his life of crime. With $200,000, he could buy a legal factory, move to California, and start over. The convoy consisted of 3 trucks. Frank drove the lead vehicle, Jimmy O'Brien drove the middle truck with weapons, and Maria Santos drove the rear truck with uranium. They traveled along Route 80, avoiding major cities, stopping only at remote gas stations. But in Pennsylvania, trouble began. Jimmy reported over radio that a car was tailing them. Maria panicked because the uranium load slowed her truck down. "Frank, I'm scared," Maria said over radio. "I hear strange noises from the uranium crate. Could it be leaking?" Frank broke out in a cold sweat. He knew raw uranium could be deadly if it leaked. But he couldn't stop now. On the second night, while stopping at a small motel in New Jersey, disaster struck. Jimmy suddenly ran a high fever and vomited blood. Maria showed similar symptoms. Frank realized the uranium was poisoning them. "Have to get to a hospital," Maria begged. "No," Frank said firmly. "We're almost there, just 50 miles more." But Jimmy couldn't go on. He died that night, blood pouring from his eyes and ears. Maria, weak but determined, had to drive the uranium truck herself. Chapter 7. The Final Betrayal. Arriving at the delivery point, a warehouse in Brooklyn, Frank discovered a horrific truth. This was no ordinary deal. The FBI had known everything and was waiting. Maria Santos, the woman Frank trusted, was an FBI agent. She had been following and reporting on Frank's activities for 2 years. "I'm sorry, Frank," Maria said as FBI agents surrounded the warehouse. "I had no choice." Frank was arrested along with the entire shipment of weapons and uranium. He realized not only Maria, but Vinny had betrayed him. The mob boss had struck a deal with the FBI, handing Frank over for a reduced sentence. "Where's Vinny?" Frank asked, handcuffed. "Mr. Castellano flew to Mexico last week," an FBI agent answered. "He's cooperating fully." Chapter 8. Total Collapse. Frank Morrison's trial was one of the biggest cases of 1944. The press labeled him the traitorous arms kingpin and wartime betrayer. The evidence was overwhelming. Dozens of witnesses, detailed documents of transactions, and Maria's testimony. Mary brought Tommy to court once. The 11-year-old boy watched his father sitting in a glass cage with confused eyes, then burst into tears. Mary said nothing, silently leading her son out. "Mary!" Frank shouted. "Please give me a chance to explain." She didn't look back. The judge sentenced Frank to 25 years in prison and confiscated all his assets. The mansion in Grosse Pointe, luxury cars, bank accounts, all seized. Mary and Tommy were relocated with new identities to Oregon by the government.